The stars hung silent above the dark side of the ruined colony. The wreckage of New Eden drifted quietly. Broken towers and shattered homes spinning slowly in the cold vacuum. There were no lights left, no voices, no laughter, only the faint echo of what once had been a proud human world. Captain Laura Green stood on the bridge of the Terran warship Dauntless. Her eyes followed the drifting debris through the observation window. The light from the distant sun flickered off the wrecks, making them look like ghosts. She had seen battlefields before, but this one was different. This was not a fight. This was an execution. Her crew worked in silence. The air on the bridge was heavy, filled with quiet anger and grief. A soft tone came from the console. Ensign Parker turned his chair slightly and looked at her. "Captain, we found something," he said. "A data capsule survived near Sector 12. It's old but readable." "Bring it in," Laura said. A few minutes later, the capsule was connected to the ship's core. The lights dimmed as the playback started. The screen filled with static, then an image appeared. A human woman's face, dusty and pale, looked into the camera. Behind her, the sky was burning. "This is Dr. Renee Voss of New Eden Colony," she said with a shaking voice. "They came without warning. They said it was a quarantine inspection. Then the sky fell. Alien warships marked with the Union's crest opened fire on us. We had no defenses. We begged them to stop. They didn't." A sound like thunder came from the recording. Someone screamed. The woman turned as a flash filled the screen. The image went dark. The bridge was silent again. Only the hum of the engines could be heard. Laura stared at the black screen for a long moment before she spoke. "Save that recording," she said quietly. "Send a copy to Earth Command." Her first officer, Commander Lee, clenched his fists. "They said it was pirates, Captain." "The Union lied," Laura nodded slowly. "They always lie when it's about us." The Dauntless moved slowly through the ruins, its searchlights cutting through drifting dust. The human fleet had lost contact with New Eden 50 years ago. The Galactic Union told Earth that pirates had destroyed it, that it was a tragic loss. Now they knew the truth. Humanity had been erased on purpose. On Earth, Admiral Jack Monroe received the transmission in the old command bunker under the Rockies. The bunker was built long before he was born, a relic of an older war. He watched the same recording in silence, his jaw tight, his eyes hard. When it ended, he turned to his aide. "Call the council," he said. "All of them." Within hours, the hidden leaders of the Terran Alliance gathered in the dim room. They were old soldiers, scientists, and diplomats who remembered the first wars with alien races. Some had fought in them. Some had lost family in them. Monroe stood at the head of the table. "The Union thought we'd forget," he said. "They thought time would make us weak. But we remember. Every colony burned, every ship lost, every life taken. They wanted to stop humanity from spreading. They feared us," an older woman at the far end spoke softly. "Fear isn't the problem, Admiral. It's arrogance. They see us as less. They always have," Monroe nodded. "Then it's time to remind them who we are." The council voted in silence. There were no cheers, no speeches, just quiet agreement. Humanity would no longer beg for peace. They would prepare for war. Across the solar system, the hidden engines of Earth began to awaken. On Mars, shipyards long thought abandoned started to glow again. On Luna, engineers uncovered old war machines stored beneath the surface. Massive carriers were rebuilt from scraps of forgotten fleets. The sound of welding and hammering echoed through the red dust and empty hangars. On the Dauntless, Captain Laura Green received new orders. She read them twice before closing the screen. "Admiral Monroe wants every surviving ship recalled to Sol," she told her crew. No transmissions. No announcements. "We go dark," the crew nodded. They knew what that meant. No one would speak of what they had seen. Not until the time was right. As the Dauntless turned toward home, Laura looked out at the ruins one last time. "We'll remember you," she whispered. "All of you." Back on Earth, Monroe walked through the underground hangar where the new flagship was being built. It was still half finished, but its frame already towered above the workers. A nameplate hung on the side, Horizon's Wrath. A young technician approached him. "Sir, it'll take at least 2 more years before she's spaceworthy." Monroe's face remained calm. "Then we build faster. Humanity's patience is almost gone." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies still under Union control, rumors began to spread. Traders whispered about strange signals coming from Sol. Alien diplomats spoke of human ships disappearing from known routes. Some believed Earth was collapsing, others feared it was rising. On the capital world of the Galactic Union, Alaris Prime, the council chamber was filled with noise and argument. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over one another. "The humans are unstable," hissed one reptilian envoy. "Their fleets have gone silent. What if they are preparing for another war?" An older Varic ambassador named Tal Rien raised a clawed hand. "You do not understand humans," he said calmly. "They are quiet before the storm. They do not act in haste. But when they move, it is with purpose." His words were ignored. The council believed humanity too weak, too fractured to pose a threat. After all, 50 years of silence had made them forget how determined humans could be. But on Earth, determination had become a weapon sharper than any blade. Generations had grown up under the shadow of betrayal, and they carried that memory like a scar. Commander Ethan Cole, a veteran of the old wars, trained new recruits in orbital stations above Earth. He watched them run drills with fierce focus, their faces hard and silent. He could see the same fire in them that once burned in him. He spoke to them one evening after training. "You weren't alive when the colonies burned," he said. "But your parents and grandparents remember. This isn't about revenge. This is about justice. We don't start wars. We finish them." The recruits nodded. None of them smiled. Months turned into years. The human fleet grew in the shadows. AI constructs worked side by side with human engineers. Every ship was faster, stronger, and smarter than the last. They used designs once banned by the Union. Weapons that could bend light, shields that could stop a sunbeam, engines that folded space itself. In deep space, the first test of a new drive shook the void. Observers on distant worlds saw a flash brighter than any star. A new kind of power was being born, one that no alien race could yet understand. Captain Laura Green's Dauntless was among the first ships to receive the new systems. As the test ended, she felt a strange calm settle over her. Humanity was no longer the weak child of the galaxy. They were something new, something ancient, patient, and terrible when awakened. She stood at the viewport watching Earth rise below her ship. Cities glittered beneath the clouds like constellations. For the first time in her life, she felt proud not just of being human, but of what humanity had become. Far below, Admiral Monroe stood in his office, looking at the same sky. He held the data capsule from New Eden in his hand. The surface was scarred, blackened by fire, but the message inside still played perfectly. He whispered to himself, "They wanted us silent. They'll hear us soon." When he placed the capsule on his desk, he looked at the holographic map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars shone across it, each one representing a world where humans had once lived or tried to. Half were gone now, burned by war or erased by fear. But now, small lights began to flicker across the map. Symbols of ships returning home, fleets gathering, signals reactivated. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had forgotten how to fear. The silence around Earth was no longer weakness. It was waiting. It was the breath before thunder, and in that silence humanity began to prepare, not to beg, not to forgive, but to settle the score. The red plains of Mars glowed faintly under the pale light of its two moons. The wind swept over the great shipyards where thousands of workers and machines moved day and night. Sparks flew as metal plates were welded, engines assembled, and new ships began to rise from the dust. The air trembled with the hum of creation. Commander Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the hangar platform, looking down at the massive warship taking shape before him. His left arm, a cybernetic replacement from an old battle, clicked softly as he crossed it over his chest. The ship's name was painted in bold white letters along the hull, Horizon's Wrath. It was humanity's newest flagship, built in secret with technology so advanced that no alien race could yet understand it. A young engineer ran up to him. "Commander, we finished installing the gravity stabilizers," she said, breathing hard. "But the fusion drive still needs recalibration. We can't run full power yet," Ethan nodded. "You'll have it ready in time," he said calmly. "We don't have the luxury of delays." He turned his gaze back to the ship. Every beam, every bolt, every circuit held a piece of human determination. The Horizon's Wrath was not just a vessel of war, it was a promise. On Luna, similar scenes unfolded. Beneath the gray surface, inside vast underground docks, the Dauntless and other surviving ships were being upgraded. Engineers worked under dim lights, guided by the quiet voice of artificial intelligences long thought deactivated. Captain Laura Green walked through one of the corridors of the Dauntless. The ship smelled of metal, oil, and ozone. She paused near a viewing window, watching the Earth rise slowly above the lunar horizon. It looked peaceful from here, blue and calm, hiding the storm that was growing beneath its surface. Her comlink buzzed. It was Admiral Jack Monroe. "Captain Green." His voice came through the static, deep and firm. "How's the refit?" "Progressing fast, sir," Laura replied. "We'll be ready for full deployment within 3 months." "Good," Monroe said. "The Council wants to accelerate our schedule. The Union's spies are starting to ask questions." Laura frowned slightly. "Should we be worried, sir?" "They still think we're rebuilding for defense," Monroe said. "Let them think that. The less they know, the better. When the time comes, we won't be asking for permission." The line went silent for a moment. Then Monroe spoke again, softer this time. "Laura, when this begins, there won't be any turning back. You understand that?" She looked out at the glowing curve of Earth and nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. We lost too much to stop now." Monroe ended the call and leaned back in his chair. The underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains was filled with holographic maps and endless data streams. Every signal, every transmission from deep space was being tracked. Humanity's quiet rebuilding had gone on for years, and soon it would no longer be a secret. He pressed a control and brought up a projection of the galaxy. Blue lines marked trade routes, Union patrol paths, and neutral territories. Red lights marked old human colonies, worlds that had been wiped out or taken. Monroe's eyes lingered on each one. He remembered their names. He remembered the people. A soft voice broke the silence. It was his assistant, Maya Carter. "Sir, there's movement near the outer sectors." "Union scout ships. They've increased patrols," Monroe sighed. "They're getting nervous. Good. It means they're starting to feel what they made us feel. Fear." Meanwhile, on Mars, Commander Ethan Cole met with his team in a small metal briefing room. Holograms flickered above the table, showing outlines of new ship designs. "The Valkyrie dreadnoughts will be ready in 6 months," one officer reported. "Each can operate independently with full AI coordination." Ethan nodded. "And the neural sync pilots?" "Training under blackout conditions," another replied. "They're adapting fast. It's like they were born for it." Ethan looked around the room. "Remember this," he said slowly. "We're not building these ships for conquest. We're building them to remind the galaxy what happens when humanity is betrayed." After the meeting, Ethan walked alone through the shipyard. He stopped near a row of unfinished fighters. Their metal shells glimmered under the artificial lights. He reached out and ran his hand along the smooth surface of one craft. He thought of his wife and daughter, who had lived on one of the colonies destroyed decades ago. Their faces had faded in his memory, but the pain never had. Every ship he helped build was a promise to them, a promise that their deaths would not be forgotten. At night, he sat by the observation window in his quarters. Through the glass, he could see the thin blue glow of Earth in the distance. The stars around it seemed to watch silently, as if waiting for something. On Ilaris Prime, the capital of the Galactic Union, alien diplomats were beginning to argue among themselves. Reports from the outer sectors told of human fleets disappearing from known routes. Communication with Terran trade hubs had been cut off. Human ambassadors had withdrawn from Union councils without explanation. In the Great Hall, under towering crystal pillars, Ambassador Tal Rin of the Varek addressed the other council members. "You think humans are quiet because they are weak," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But they are quiet because they are planning. I have studied them for a century. They are the only species that turns grief into strategy." The others ignored him. A silver-skinned delegate from the Zoran race scoffed. "The humans lack the numbers to challenge us," he said. "They couldn't even protect their own colonies." Tal Rin shook his head. "Then I suggest you remember what happens when they decide to protect something. Back on Earth, secret operations continued in the deepest vaults beneath the oceans. Entire cities of machines worked without sunlight, building what was known only as the Iron Heart Network, a vast intelligence system connecting every human ship, satellite, and defense array. It was designed not to control humans, but to serve them. The Iron Heart was humanity's greatest creation, an AI consciousness that could learn, adapt, and think like a human, but without emotion or fear. It watched over Earth silently, guiding the growing fleet and predicting enemy movements before they happened. Admiral Monroe stood before the massive core chamber of the Iron Heart. It was surrounded by transparent shields and humming energy coils. A female voice filled the room, calm and steady. "Good evening, Admiral," the voice said. "I have completed integration with the orbital fleets. All systems are operational." Monroe nodded. "You've done well. Would you like me to begin monitoring the Union's encrypted channels?" "Already?" Monroe asked, slightly surprised. The AI paused. "I have been doing so for 6 months." He smiled faintly. "Then keep watching. When the time comes, we'll need to know exactly where to strike." Above Earth, Captain Laura Green watched her crew train tirelessly. Every simulation, every drill, every system test was preparing them for the inevitable. She walked among them quietly, offering short words of encouragement. Her ship's pilot, Lieutenant Nora Blake, approached her one evening. "Captain," she said, "why don't we just tell the galaxy what they did? Why not show them the truth?" Laura looked at her for a long moment. "Because they wouldn't believe us," she said. "They never do. But when we strike, the truth won't be words, it'll be history." Nora nodded slowly. There was nothing more to say. As weeks passed, the first of the new fleets began to leave their hidden docks. They vanished into deep space under false transponder codes, moving through quiet routes known only to human navigators. Every ship carried the same silent purpose. From the icy moons of Jupiter to the burning sands of Mars, humanity was awakening. The stars that once looked distant now felt close, almost within reach. One evening, Commander Ethan Cole stood outside the observation dome with a small group of engineers. They watched as the Horizon's wrath powered up for the first time. The ground shook as its engines ignited, glowing with blue fire that reflected across the surface of Mars. The roar echoed across the valleys and canyons. Ethan smiled faintly. "Listen to that," he said quietly. "That's the sound of humanity remembering who they are." The ship slowly lifted off, rising through the thin Martian air, disappearing into the black sky. The workers below cheered softly, not out of joy but pride. They knew this was not the end of something. It was the beginning. Far away on Alaris Prime, a Union scout captain received a faint signal from the edge of human space. It was a burst of energy unlike anything they had recorded before. For a moment, the signal filled their sensors, then vanished. The captain frowned. "What was that?" His second officer looked uneasy. "It came from Sol, sir." "It looks like a fleet movement." The captain hesitated. "A fleet? But Earth doesn't have that many ships." The officer stared at the readings again. "Then maybe they built them." The captain said nothing. He only stared out the viewport toward the distant stars, a chill running down his spine. On Earth, Admiral Monroe stood once again before the galactic map. One by one, the red lights representing human fleets began to blink to life. They were no longer hiding. He looked at the map silently, then turned to Maya Carter. "It's time," he said. "Time for what, sir?" she asked softly. Monroe's voice was calm but cold. "Time for the galaxy to remember us." Outside, hundreds of ships rose from Earth's orbit like a new constellation. Their engines burned bright, reflecting off the planet's oceans. The stars seemed to flicker as if the universe itself was holding its breath.